Law matters. Of course it does. Hello, I'm Debbie Moraes, your host and moderator. As we tell you, this program has been created to educate, inform, and help you with law matters because the law matters. Understand the law better, and you're in a better position, as we tell you, to help yourself, protect yourself, your business, and your family. We continue to provide information and resources that'll help you to determine whether you might actually want to handle some issues yourself. If you do need outside counsel, of course, our goal is to have them better prepared. Our goal always is to help you save time, money, and to achieve the best possible results. We, once again, also want to welcome David Bizarre, our attorney from Bizarre & Associates law firm in East Providence, who continues to lend his expertise and wonderful anecdotes on the various topics that we tackle. So today we're going to discuss what you need to know about the latest holiday scams and social hosting laws to help keep the ho-ho-ho in your holiday. From gift rack cards to online scams, consumers are under assault this year, as every year, amid what now, this year, business analysts are saying this is going to be the first ever trillion-dollar holiday season. So we're going to look at some of the more prominent threats, what you can do, what the issues are, how you can avoid them. And with a little time left, at the end, we will also talk about social hosting laws, not just with alcohol, as we've discussed in the past, but also cannabis, because beware, as the story goes, there are third-party lawsuits that could cause you trouble, and we don't want that to happen. Well, scammers are about, David. And did you have a good time shopping online Cyber Monday?
I haven't done that yet.
You haven't?
How about you?
I started to, but it's terrible. There are so many Grinches out there. I read one most recently about those fake UGG Black Friday sales and Cyber Monday sales. Once you think that you're getting a hot deal, in fact, it wasn't really the UGG boots company. It was malicious adware. And I guess this year the big deal is with catalogs and online sales, there's something called ad jacking. Being in the ad business, I'm particularly sensitive to it. So ad hijacking is when you have somebody sending you an email using some automated means, and they inject adware, malware, infect your computer, your website if you're using one, and essentially they're impersonating legitimate ads on another site. What do you think we should do about that when you see that there's so much of that? This isn't news, but the ad hijacking portion perhaps is a little more rampant.
So it's hard to tell sometimes because these companies now can follow and track your web browsing history, and they use that to send things out to you which are somewhat legitimate, annoying, yes, but somewhat legitimate, like, oh, you want tickets to a basketball game because we saw you looked for basketball tickets, there's this, or you looked for a kitchen table. There are great kitchen table sales at this site, or this site. And they follow, I don't know if it's that cookies thing that you see in your computer, you know, our cookie policy, or however it is that it's done. I'm not a tech guy, but they follow your history and then send things out legitimately, as I say, annoyingly, but legitimately. So how do you distinguish between those and the ones that are absolutely just not legitimate and pose a threat or a problem of some form or fashion? My answer is I don't click into anything that's sent to me. I only go to where I want to go.
And in a nutshell, that is the best single bit of advice that keeps you as safe as possible. There are so many who can mimic the sites and do a very good job of it. What you spoke of earlier is what is a legitimate thing in the ad business called retargeting. You went to a website, you thought you might buy the thing, but you didn't buy the thing. There is a little piece of pixel code called cookie or whatever you want. Yes, it is called a cookie. And it tracks you. So you go to maybe your bank website and then suddenly you're being revisited with ads. Those things aren't scamming you, but they can be annoying. But the worst of it is that there are so many that look legitimate when you've been following a particular product and a particular website, and then you get an email because you've given them your address somewhere. Enough people have been able to track that, follow that, and impersonate it. You click on it and you have trouble. Not only do they do it, I guess, with not being a legitimate site, but they also do it as one who buys inferior goods. For example, with that UGG story, this was interesting to hear. Someone doesn't really have legitimate UGG boots, but they've been able to monitor what you've been doing, and that illegitimate website may send you boots. They aren't legitimate, or they might not even send you boots, but instead inject your website or your computer with malware, which gives you another problem called identity theft.
I
Don't
guess
do it.
I guess we call it cookies because we leave crumbs everywhere we go on the internet. And the people who pick up those crumbs that aren't the legitimate folks that usually would use that to retarget you, as you say, are the ones that sort of remind me of the people on the street corners in New York City where they're selling you fake handbags or fake scarves or fake whatever. And so if you're lucky, you'll at least get the fake item if you follow that back to them and give them your money for something. But the bottom line is, I would just recommend, you know what you want, search for it actively, proactively. Don't let them come to you.
And as I said, that is the single best thing you can do. If you had gone shopping and either did buy or didn't buy, you're very likely to be able to have somebody else who's mimicked the site. Again, think this is someone who has already bought something. I think I'll see if they want to buy more. When they do, one of the things they often tell you to look for is if you did make the mistake of clicking and thinking you're going to that UGG website or whatever else, you may be diverted to several other sites and several other pages that aren't the landing page that you thought you were going to. Once that happens, don't give your information. As we always say, get away from it as quickly as you possibly can.
And it's not too dissimilar from the old phishing things you used to get and reply to this website and it's supposed to be your bank. But if you look at, the picture might look like the bank website to some degree, but if you look at the actual site, the information on the web browser site that they're sending you to, it has nothing to do with the bank and it's totally different information. And so I wouldn't go in at all, but I'd at least look at that before I even thought about it.
You know, you mentioned about phishing schemes and the rest. It's very interesting, but over these recent years, those who are fraudsters have gotten better and better at how to mimic the sites. So some of them look so legitimate. Even bank sites have been hacked because they look like they have the familiar banner and branding that you would expect. If you are likely to go to a website and you're still not sure, and as you say, they're so good at it, one of the very interesting things that's been indicated, especially now, if you hover the mouse over, you may find that it doesn't actually go to that site, the familiar site that you want, that brand, that company, that store, that retailer. Instead, it has some very peculiar URL, and if it does, don't go there.
And that's what I guess that's the technical name, the URL. Those are the letters and numbers and things with the dots and the commas that I was referring to.
Yes, the QZLPM, watch out.
Yeah. And I call that whatever.
Whatever. So it's interesting how fraudsters have made so much money, and it's put both sellers and merchants at such a disadvantage because people have wanted to be shopping online like never before, and there are so many more issues that they have to be careful of. Interestingly enough, some people still will put their PIN number, their credit card number in, and they don't realize for quite some time that their information has been sold in the dark, to the dark web, and it turns up later that you have credit problems. Yeah. What do people do when they have credit problems? Do they have to go through every credit card in the world?
Well, you should do that, every credit card that you have, obviously. But you should also contact the credit reporting bureaus. There's 3 main ones, and just have them put something up so that your credit is at least not affected, or it's noted within each bureau that you've been hacked or somebody's fraudulently used your credit, and that way they're aware of that.
Interestingly enough, people who are holiday shopping for their loved ones look to buy gift cards. We had spoken of that before, about how you need to be careful of it. whether you're at a retailer's and you think that you're getting the card that you want for the amount that you want, and then you suddenly find that there's no money in it, even though you've given it to someone, or in fact, they've managed to get your information or some portion of what you thought you'd buy, never get the merchandise. It's a terrible situation, but the advice that we hear is make sure that that card is coming from the back of the register from someone who could hand it to you, hoping even at that point that the retailer, the checkout clerk, hasn't been doing something underhanded. But the ones that are left out at front at the point of purchase, point of sale, often they're the ones that get more likely hacked.
Yeah, and there's also the ones that you could buy for other stores at a pharmacy or other retail store that aren't for that particular store, and they're displayed at the end cap of the display usually. And on the back of those cards, you need to check that. There's usually a PIN number that you have to rub off to get the PIN number. So check to make sure someone hasn't already done that, because if they have, they've probably taken the card number and the PIN number.
Often they'd say you should look at how the card is packaged, because, as you say, someone may take the card out, peel the back of it, and get that number, maybe even sell it, maybe just have a random automated software that will play with the numbers, hopefully to get that PIN. That's an arduous task in itself, but people who are desperate enough do those things.
Right.
And the antidote, they say to that these days, is if you're going to buy a gift card, it's actually safer to buy it online at the merchants rather than even in a store, because at least then you could likely assume that no other hands have been on it to tamper with that seal, that PIN, or whatever the code is in the back.
Makes sense.
When people are talking about dealing with gift cards that have been purchased from a discount site, everyone wants to have some sort of discount. Makes sense that you want to do that. People shop online and look at a listing of websites. Buy $50 for $10. Sounds like such a good idea. And many of the stores do have some sort of a promotion, but those that seem too good to be true really are. While Costco this year, David, had said that they were going to be giving some promotion, there were on the website, on the listings, search, when people are Google searching, there were listings that said Costco is giving $75 away. They do love you if you're a customer, thank you, customer of theirs, but they don't really give $75 away. That is one that most people would not be very well aware of, because it was so closely listed among all of the other Costco offers.
Yep.
Hard to know, very hard to know.
Right, and so as you're saying, if the deal is too good to be true, usually it is, but really what you need to look at is, where is the deal coming from? Is it a website that is legit and you're familiar with it and you know how it works? There are a lot of deals that are done to sponsorships on like radio and that type of thing. Oftentimes those are legitimate deals, but you have to be familiar with it. So the best thing you can do to make sure you don't get scammed by something like that is to research the person who's promoting the deal, know about them, know where they're from and the background, and then you can be more confident that it's a legitimate deal.
What about those who do shop at, say, the Amazons now? Amazon may have its own product, but they also may be selling someone else's product, as they often do. And as you scroll down the page, there are some offers that are pretty good, actually, nice discounts. Amazon may or may not be offering that in their warehouse, but somewhere they're going to be, actually, here's the question, are they going to be liable if that really wasn't a legitimate person putting up a legitimate item? I could say that I have tires for sale at thus and such a price. I don't sell tires, I don't have tires, but I managed to get your credit card and your information and don't send you the tires. Now who's liable?
So Amazon, unlike eBay, so if you go to eBay, you know you're not dealing with eBay. It's individuals who are posting information for things for sale, and you're dealing with those individuals. eBay is just sort of a conduit for those deals. when people go to Amazon, generally they think they're dealing with Amazon. That's who I'm buying from. Oftentimes you're not. Sometimes Amazon has preferred providers, so to speak, that list things with them, but Amazon is theoretically vetting those folks very carefully, and they're sort of vouching for people who are on their website. So if it's a legitimate Amazon website, I would venture to say, for what it's worth, that Amazon would be liable if there was something that wasn't what it was said it would be.
Sounds right. And in many of these cases where you're buying something online, by the time you go to checkout, PayPal is one of the options versus you forking over your MasterCard or Visa. Of late, PayPal has had some issues, and apparently when you are going to a PayPal site, you're actually you're in a queue when you wait. So after you go back to try to put that final sale back in because you didn't want to wait, it's already been hacked, and it's taking you not to a PayPal, but to a PayPal lookalike. So somewhere in that time that you thought you had checked off the right box and used PayPal, because you have a PayPal account, buyer beware, because even at that point, farther down in the sales process, you could actually be hacked at that point too.
Yeah. So I generally like to use American Express because I have found them very responsive to situations that aren't what they're alleged to be. And so that's what I use.
Good idea. And family scams. So you, your wife, your daughter might be in the same household and everyone's shopping, and after you have purchased something, you often might get an email confirmation. Well, here was something that was an email confirmation that you didn't actually buy, but you might have thought that your wife or your daughter did. You click on it, and in fact, confirming that purchase was not the thing to do because it really wasn't a PayPal confirmed purchase. It was someone who was actually scamming you. And then you realize when you talk to your wife or your daughter that neither one of you bought whatever they're claiming. And the minute you click on the link that says, this is how you dispute that alleged purchase, you end up with, here we are, injected malware and in trouble again.
So my advice on that would be, if you didn't buy it, don't click into it. If you think your wife or daughter or son may have purchased it, ask them first, and don't open it unless there's a reason to, and they've told you, yeah, I did buy that. In
which case, as you always point out, go back to the retailer that you thought that he, she, or you had purchased from.
Right.
UPS alerts, Amazon, FedEx alerts and delays, the latest of another version of how to be scammed. So you know that you've bought things, and then FedEx email comes up, UPS email comes up and says, we're sorry for the delay, click here. The word was don't. Since you've been given a tracking number, to your point, be proactive.
Right. Go
to the site, check it that way, rather than, oh, this looks like a convenient link, because it may be more dangerous than just a convenient link.
Absolutely. You use UPS, you use FedEx, you know the tracking number, you know how to get to their website. Don't take the ones they send to you to check it, go directly to them.
And for others who are giving gifts, an alternative to giving gifts is to give something in a name of a charity. So there are wonderful charities out there, but then there are those that are saying, instead of giving a gift to your sister, your cousin, whatever, instead donate here. Your thoughts about that, David?
So if someone is telling you where to donate, and explain to me what you're saying by that.
So if the email is the easy issue.
Okay.
We're from what looks like the American Heart Association, but it's not. So off the bat, you'd be saying, just don't go to American Heart Association in the first place if you wanted to do that kind of charity. But those that come in the mail, it looks like it's a legitimate thing. How do you handle that, and how do you avoid being scammed?
So if you're going to give something as a gift to somebody, but it's a charitable donation for them, ask them where they want you to give to, and then contact them directly. And people who are philanthropic and generous and give to different charities have charities that they give to, and honor those charities. Don't necessarily take what comes in the mail to you because you don't know where it came from.
And if you were interested in perhaps giving to some other kind of or a new cause, there are websites that you can, again, proactively look at. The Charity Navigator was one, or Charity Watcher. There are various other sites that let you check to make sure that that is a 501c3, that it's legitimate, and you can even check to make sure that they're not taking an exorbitant amount of overhead and donating very little to the actual cause that you want to
Right,
donate
and so give to a charity that you're passionate about, or whoever you're honoring that they're passionate about. And yes, you can research all 501c3s to determine what their overhead is and how much goes to the cause itself. So absolutely do that.
And some people like to go away for holidays. Instead of giving a gift, let's have a family trip. Let's look online for the best deal for somewhere where it's nice and warm. Those high demand destinations, not surprisingly, people know that, and if they're interested in scamming, another buyer beware. It may look like it's a bona fide Expedia or whatever else, and in fact, it offers so many clicks away for you to even find out, never mind what boat you'd be on, even what country you'd be going to. Again, beware. It's better to go to the more legitimate ones that you proactively go
Absolutely, or go skiing. So it's cold, not warm.
There's some of that too. It's interesting that of all of the scams that come up new, apparently the holiday one, it seems to be very hot this year because people do seem to want to travel more with their kids or whatever during the holiday. Charities, kids and grandparent schemes. I guess it's hot time. We know, we've spoken before of it, David, where it happens all year long. This is your grandchild. I'm in trouble. Please send money.
Right. I'm in London. I can't. My wallet was stolen or lost. I need money.
Or I was arrested and I need you to Western Union me something.
Bail money.
Bail money.
Yeah.
Send Target gift cards.
You know, it's always a fraudulent scheme if you're getting an email like that, especially when your grandson or granddaughter is in college and they haven't left school and they're not in London or wherever else they may be claimed to be. Unfortunately, people sometimes just get nervous and do things like that.
How do you avoid having not just grandparents, but others who are likely to be duped by, I'm in trouble, or my sister's in trouble, can you help? What do you say to that? Do you just say, hold on, I'll call you back, give me a number, let me go call your mother Mary or whatever?
Yeah, and talk to other family members who might be aware of where people are and what's going on, and make sure that you get as much information as you can from as many people before you fall for what is probably a dupe. If it's legitimate, if it's a grandchild and you have your own children, the parents of that child, call them. They might know, and they might say, oh no, they're here with us. What are you talking about?
What about if you're asked to give money by way of Western Union? If you actually called Western Union, wouldn't that also head it off at the pass?
Usually, and I'll tell you, I don't know if I related this story before, but you know there's these other scams that happen where they say it's an electric company or something like that, a utility, and your bill isn't paid and it's going to get shut off, and you need to go and get X number of dollars of gift cards and call us back with the gift cards so that we can take the payment that way. And I've had people tell me they actually have fallen for that, and one time it was a very big number that they were looking for, and the clerk, I think it was a CVS, the cashier, said, is this to pay a utility bill? And he said, yeah, how'd you know? She said, it's a scam. And so she saved him the money.
So they're somewhat aware of these kinds of things. I imagine that at this point, because these grandparent, or they call them grandparent schemes, if they hear an elderly person saying, I'm desperate, I must get money to whatever, they probably try to put the brakes on it a little bit and investigate a little more thoroughly. Let's talk a little bit about social hosting. Every year we talk about people who host parties at their homes, and they need to watch out if, as we would say, Uncle Ernie drank too much. Apart from, so when we do talk about that, the issue can be that if someone ends up driving and gets in an accident, you are the host, you're in trouble, correct?
Well, in Rhode Island, a social host
Yes.
for an adult drinker is not necessarily liable for the actions of the adult drinker. If it's a commercial setting, meaning a restaurant or a bar, and they overserve somebody and that person creates either an injury to someone else or themselves, depending on how grossly negligent the establishment might be, then that falls under what's called the Dram Shop Act or rules or law, and they could be liable for that. So Rhode Island, as far as I know, and I haven't seen any cases otherwise come down on this, has not said that a social host is liable for serving alcohol to an adult. Yes, to a minor, under certain circumstances, you can be held liable, but not to the adult.
And if you are dealing with the under 21 in some cases, there's an issue about alcohol, but apparently another new wrinkle this year is other controlled substances. So for the longest time, that has also meant marijuana. So even as recently as this last week, in the news are people who are needing to be careful of the hosting green holidays, meaning little cannabis edible parties or, you know, sharing a doobie, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's going on and you are the host and someone is smoking or having those edibles and had too much, what's your liability here? I know that in California, they're going after a third party, so please explain.
Well, Massachusetts, it's legal.
Yes.
But their rules on social hosting, and it would probably follow or track whatever the rules are with alcohol. In Rhode Island, it's not legal. So you can't have those parties legally. And quite frankly, I don't know what a court would do, but given the difference between alcohol being legal and marijuana not being legal in recreational settings in Rhode Island, you probably could be looking or maybe looking at some liability.
And it's interesting because from what I had investigated, at least out in the West Coast, where they've had many of these issues recently, they were talking about revising an ordinance that has a new section that they refer to as a civil liability with cost recovery. I'm reading this, specifying that while willful damage to a person or property caused by anyone under age 18 can be responsibility of that person's parent or guardian, social hosts can be held responsible for any injuries done to others present. So they're going...
Well, that was specifically talking about underage, which would be the same as underage drinking
for alcohol
and serving.
As well.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons I say in Rhode Island you could have some issues is underage drinking is not legal. Mm-hmm. So you could then take an analogy to serving cannabis products in a recreational setting in Rhode Island, whether under 21 or over 21 is not legal, and so you may have liability based on that type of analogy to serving an underage child liquor.
Quickly, can you claim lack of knowledge? Do you find that you have to ask your kids and their friends, let me see the license to see if you're underage before you have a party? Would you do that?
Well, I wouldn't serve anyone who was even close to being underage. A friend of my child who was 16 or 17 or 18, it's 21.
21.
So, yeah, if you're not sure, you could ask, but why even take the risk? Just don't serve the alcohol.
Err on the side of caution.
I would.
Makes sense. We hope that this has been helpful to you. We wish you and your family happy holidays, and we hope this has helped you to keep the ho, ho, ho in your holiday. Stay tuned to The Law Matters. As we say, it matters to you.